Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback Russell Wilson just cooked the New York Jets on Sunday Night Football. So, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they let Russ cook as he put up 16 of 29 passes for 264 yards, 2 touchdowns, and also added 1 rushing touchdown as well. So, the Steelers, they let Russ cook as he put up the most passing yards in a Pittsburgh Steelers debut as a starter in team history. And he also put up 37 total points for the Pittsburgh Steelers, having a season high against the Jets. So, before I get more into it, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for everything Pittsburgh Steelers news and updates. Also, like this video. Now, let's get right back into it. So, when you look at this offense as an overview for this game, it looks as though the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive coordinator, Arthur Smith, opened up the playbook more for Russell Wilson than he had for Justin Fields the past 6 weeks. It just seems as though there's way more passing plays, way more play action type of plays, and just way more execution on the receivers and the playmakers than there has been the last 6 weeks with Justin Fields. And that's just an overview of the offense, looking at it from Arthur Smith's perspective. Russell Wilson, obviously he's been a veteran in this league. Justin Fields is a younger player, so maybe the offense coordinator has more trust that Russell Wilson could execute a higher type level of offense, and maybe it was just a condensed playbook with Justin Fields. Who knows? But from an outside looking view, with Russell Wilson leading things, the playbook was way more open. And it gave a chance for Russ to cook. But it didn't start off too well for Russell Wilson and the Steelers, because they only put up 6 points in the first half, and the score was 15-6. It wasn't looking too good. Russell Wilson looked really, really bad in those first 2 quarters, throwing passes behind the receivers, throwing it short of the receivers. But you have to remember, they said it was his first game since Christmas Eve last season. So it's almost been like 365 days since Russell Wilson last played football, and he's the first game as a Pittsburgh Steeler starter or Pittsburgh Steeler in general. So it was going to take time for him to get used to the playbook, him to get used to the new receivers and everything like that. So it allowed Russell Wilson to knock off some rust in the first half. But in the second half, the Steelers offense took off. That's when touchdowns were being scored. The Steelers scored on their final 5 possessions out of 6. So Russell Wilson added 2 touchdowns to the air. George Pickens added 1. You look at Van Jefferson, he also caught his touchdown of the season. And you look at a rushing touchdown from Najee Harris, a rushing touchdown from Russell Wilson as well. So there's just touchdowns all over the board in the second half, and that's when the Steelers offense started to get going. And that's when Russell Wilson showed the veteran that he's been in this league for 15 plus seasons, and he knows how to play football. That talent is just not gone. And Russell Wilson, he proved all the doubters wrong. Not even the people that were talking negative on him for the last week because of the Justin Fields benching, but the people who've been talking to him ever since the last season in Seattle, where they didn't execute well for the season. And then the Denver Broncos run that he had, where he underperformed and things like that. And even the last week, where many people thought that Justin Fields should have remained the starter, he proved all the doubters wrong, and he led the Steelers offense and team to a victory on Sunday Night Football in prime time with everyone watching. The big thing that Russell Wilson did in this game was get his playmakers the ball. George Pickens, 5 receptions, 111 yards, touchdown. Pat Freiermuth adding 51 yards. He also got Darnell Washington, a big tight end, involved in the game with 36 receiving yards but 4 catches. He also just got Calvin Austin involved early, even though it wasn't completions. He got some targets and looks to Calvin Austin. He also just added 1 reception for 36 yards. Van Jefferson adding a touchdown. So we kind of spread the ball around in terms of targets, and he was just able to execute the offense and allow Najee Harris to be able to add 21 carries for 102 yards and a rushing touchdown. Jalen Warren, 12 carries for 44 yards. When the passing offense was there, it allows a running offense to be better. And because the Steelers actually looked good throwing the ball and was able to spread the ball around and execute at a high level, it opened things up in the running game. That's a big thing with Russell Wilson that I said. I said the running game might not be there in terms of running with the quarterback, but the passing offense would be better with Russell Wilson. And because the passing game was better, it allowed the Jets defense to not come up in 9-man looks, 9 people in the box, and be able to stack the box up for Najee Harris to Jaylen Warren. Because the passing offense was actually executing, it had to make the Jets play off a little bit, not have those linebackers in there, not have those safeties down, and it allowed Najee Harris to have some holes, Jaylen Warren to have some holes in the running game because it wasn't a stacked box. So the pass game actually led the offense running game to actually be better than in previous weeks. Also, Russell Wilson, something that he did better than Justin Fields has done in the previous weeks was the touch pass. I'm not going to sit here and say, like the announcers and the commentators were saying in the game, that Russell Wilson is throwing a better deep ball than Justin Fields. Because that's one of the things Justin Fields did really good. The deep ball. Throwing it deep to George Pickens, throwing it deep to whoever. Just completing those passes on target all the time. That's something he did really good, and I'm not going to take that away from him. So Justin Fields throws a good and great deep ball. And that's one of his great assets to his game. But the one thing I will say is the touch pass. There's a difference between throwing the deep ball and throwing touch passes. Every single time Justin Fields throws the ball, it seems like he throws it with a lot of velocity and doesn't take much off of it. Always throws at the same speed, but Russell Wilson is able to switch up the speed of his throws. He can throw it fast, he can throw it a lob pass. That's something that Russell Wilson does do better than Justin Fields. I do believe that Justin Fields does throw a really good deep ball, but Russell Wilson throws a more touchable that's better. And obviously that has execution for the offense, able to lob it over the defender instead of a bullet pass. So, while the Steelers' offense did look great, I'm also going to say this. A lot of it had to do with their defense as well. If their defense was not able to get the ball at the 1-yard line off of a Beanie Bishop interception from Aaron Rodgers, then Russell Wilson, he would not have that one rushing touchdown. If Beanie Bishop did not intercept another ball and return it within the 20-yard line, maybe another score wouldn't have been made. So a lot of points came off their defense, just like in previous weeks. So when the Steelers put up 32 last week or 33 points last week, we said it was a defense that got them in that position. Well, if you're going to say it for last week, you got to say it for this week as well. Yes, the Steelers' offense did look better, but a lot of the points did come off their defense and special teams, once again. But that's not to take anything away from the win, because obviously as a team, you want everyone to play in sync. The offense, defense, and special teams. That's 3 components of the game. So obviously you rely on each other. But I'm just saying in terms of the scoring of the points, the defense did help the offense, as expected, as you would want to happen. Turnovers create points, and that's what we saw. And that's what helped the Steelers' offense look amazing. Also, I'm going to say this. The passes that Justin Fields was throwing these receivers, even though he was throwing on target, on time, everything like that, it seemed as though they were dropping it. But in this week's game, it seems like those same catches that were targets that were dropped by the receivers in previous weeks, the first 6 weeks, they were being caught. So all the contested catches that George Pickens was dropping in previous weeks, Pat Freiermuth was dropping, those catches were made. And it seems as though the receivers got more open as well in this week's game. I don't know if it was because of a scheme that the Steelers had drawn up. Maybe the defense of the Jets weren't as good as other teams. But it seems as though more contested catches were made that weren't made in previous weeks that hurt Justin Fields was helping Russell Wilson. And it seems as though the players were more open as well. Maybe it's just because Russell Wilson was able to find them and Justin Fields wasn't, but there's way more open receivers this week. So it's crazy how that works. Justin Fields goes to the bench and everything just starts clicking for this team. And that's a really, really good sign for the Steelers that Russell Wilson is able to lead this team. Because many people were thinking that there's going to be a downfall for the Steelers. All these morning show hosts, reporters, analysis people were giving the Steelers kind of crap about benching Justin Fields, but now Russell Wilson comes in, he leads the Steelers to victory, and I'm sure they're going to have positive things to say about him today. Anyway, that's the end of this video, but one last thing, the Steelers and Arthur Smith let Russ cook, and he cooked against the Jets in his first game as a Pittsburgh Steeler. So, with that being said, that's the end of this video. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments below on how Russell Wilson performed against the Jets. Do you believe it was just an average performance, or do you believe he played well? And who would you decide to start in next week's game? Do you believe Russell Wilson looked good enough to keep him as a starter, or would you still want Justin Fields to be the starter for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Obviously, in my mind, Mike Tomlin, there's no going back now. You're going to stick with the Russell Wilson until the wheels fall off. The one big question mark surrounding Russell Wilson was his health, his calf, and he got injured pushing a sled. But in this game, he had 2 rushing attempts, quarterback sneaks, were the same movement as the sled push. And he was able to stay healthy and prove that he is healthy and lead the Steelers to victory. So, that's my thoughts, but let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And also, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn notifications for everything Pittsburgh Steelers news, updates, highlights, analysis, reports. And until the next video, I'll see you guys all later. I'm out. Peace.